I just wanted to share that we have released a overhaul of both the front end and the back end of our signals report for remote patient monitoring, or RPM tracking. So now if you go into the signals activity, you can still find our RPM billing data dashboard under the remote patient monitoring section. And if you open that up, you'll see the overhauled RPM report. I wanted to go through and show a few new features that we've added to this dashboard. First of all, our time range is now configured using our advanced time range functionality, and this allows it to just show you the month-to-date data by default. So when you open up this dashboard, all the data that you're seeing is the current month-to-date, and you can see that time range right here. Today is June 6th, and it's showing me data from June 1st till right now. An additional new feature that we've added is the ability to override the RPM tag for your clients. So by default and historically, this report has always only showed patients or clients from your organization who are tagged with the RPM tag on the clients table. That's still how the dashboard works by default, but now you can actually remove that and change it to a different tag or add in a different tag if you'd like as well. This allows you to create different RPM cohorts and group them separately by running this report using different tag sources. The first component you'll see is a cleaned up version of the RPM tagged patients. This just shows you all of the users who qualify for the rest of the components in the report. I wanted to share some new changes that we made to the components for CPT code 99454 and 99457 and 58, and that is projected data. So you still see for the month each of your RPM users and how many unique days they have a reading qualifying for RPM. But now we've added in two new columns. One is called utilization rate and one is called projected days. So the utilization rate just indicates how many of the days so far this month the user has gotten a reading, and the projected days is an extension of that. So let's take Bill Smith as an example. Today is June 6th, and he has 3 days with readings that qualify for RPM. That means he's got a utilization rate of 50%. On average, every other day in June, he's been syncing a device and getting a reading uploaded. And that means that by the end of the month, if he continues that trend, he'll have 15 and a half days with readings. Now, this is a really critical data point if you're trying to bill for 99454 because you need 16 unique days with readings. So Bill is a great example of a client who we might want to call up proactively early in the month to indicate that he might want to sync a device a little bit more often, just so we can get him over that 16-day threshold. Note that additionally, there's two flavors of the 99454 component. The first one interprets the 99454 requirement to be any reading from any device. The second one actually splits that out by specific measure. So what this means, for example, is that client Rudyard Kipling has 5 unique days with readings across the board, but he only has 4 unique days with weight readings from Withings. So depending on how you're going to bill for 99454, you can use one or the other of these components. The utilization rate and projected days, do note, is in both of those components now. Another thing I wanted to share is the RPM minutes component. We've done a total overhaul on this component, and it looks a lot cleaner now. It's a lot easier to digest. And what this does is it shows you for the month for each of your qualifying clients how many minutes of time your practitioners have spent in that client's profile. The total time is the top level data that you're looking for. This just means that 8 minutes of RPM time have been dedicated to this user so far. And similar to the prediction or projection up above, this is going to also project the month-end total. It's important to note that for billing 99457 and 99458, you need to bill those in 20-minute block increments. So for this client, we're projected to hit 43 minutes at the end of the month. That's great for 2 blocks. If we were perhaps at 36 or 38 minutes, we might want to dedicate a little more time to that user. This also is going to break out the 8 minutes into the different types of time. So we have concierge, sidebar, client profile, reports, and manual time. I'm going to go through really quick and just explain what each of those is. So starting at the clients table, when you open your clients table, you'll see a list of every client and their metrics. When you click a metric, it'll open up the client sidebar, and you can review data right here in the sidebar. That's what sidebar time means in the RPM report. It's just that you've opened up this sidebar and you're reviewing data here. Next, I'm going to click the client's name. I can either click up here or right here, and this opens up their profile. Any time spent browsing around in their profile on any of these tabs is going to count as client profile time. The next thing is you can view a dashboard as client. This puts you into the client's view. This logs you in as the client, and you can see exactly what they see. You know that you're in this view when you see the pink banner saying you're in physician or concierge mode, and this is what the RPM report counts as concierge time. Reports time is specifically any time building reports for your client using our reports page. And finally, manual time is time that you've added manually that happened outside of heads up. This is really important for RPM as well. If you go to the time log activity, you'll see functionality to allow you to add time manually. So perhaps I've called the patient today. I might select a type of RPM and say I called them for 20 minutes today. You can select which practitioner called them and save it off. And as soon as I save that manual time entry, that will percolate down into the RPM report as well. So that's how all of those different times are counted, and they all add up to the total time, which is used to predict your month-end total. One other thing to point out is that sometimes a practitioner might open up a client's profile or a sidebar, etc., and they may leave the computer. If I open up this screen, for example, and I leave my machine and go out to lunch, you don't necessarily want to assume that the practitioner has been reviewing this data the whole time. So do note that we have a 5-minute time limit. That's something that's configurable, but it is a 5-minute time limit on any single event. So if you don't do anything for over 5 minutes, we're going to cut that off and call it a 5-minute event when we're adding up this time. And that's just to avoid ballooning time and reporting inaccurate information for your RPM billing. You can always get into the dirty details of RPM minutes using this detail report. I would recommend using our export to CSV functionality when reviewing this. That'll allow you to pull the data down into a CSV file that you can use in Excel or Numbers. It's a little bit easier to manipulate there because it is such a large table. And those are the updates that we've made to the RPM report recently. I would encourage you to go check those out, and please reach out to support@headsuphealth.com with any questions.